This breakout session is going to be on planning and goals if everything has worked out right, and I think it has. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to be taking a look at 3 of the 10 items within the Be a Vibrant Club kind of model. So give me 1 second. Okay, are you seeing the Be a Vibrant Club page? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the 3 we're going to be focusing on for the next half hour are deciding what you'd like your club to be like in 3 to 5 years. We'll look at the different documents that are hyperlinked, deciding on annual goals, and entering them to Rotary Club Central. I see that the governor is on, and in the opening session, I think he'd mentioned that there was like 30-something% of the clubs that had goals entered in Rotary Club Central, if I remember correctly. And then we're going to also look at coaching new and continuing members in leading. So those are 3. But remember, these are all linked. So even though we're looking at 3 of the 10, the other 7 that you've already been looking at are connected. And you're going to see those linkages as we go through this, if you have not already. Okay, and again, please be interactive, ask questions, and we will have a good interchange here. So deciding what you'd like your club to be like in 3 to 5 years. The first document we're going to take a look at is the Rotary Club Health Check. So again, if you've got the electronic version of the Be a Vibrant Club, you'll be able to open this. I'm just going to bring it up and show you what it looks like. Have any of you used this Rotary Club Health Check before? Sandy, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I adapted it to our, actually, I showed it at our board meeting. I took that to the board, and I just told them to just review it and just contemplate about your committees and what your, how you feel about answering some of those questions. It wasn't for them to, and I think what happened was it was sort of like they thought it might be a negative thing, but I said, no, I just want you to just kind of contemplate on these questions and see how we're doing based on what you know about what you're doing in our club.
Cool.
So it was very useful. I thought it was a good one.
Cool. As we kind of do a little dive into this, I'd be interested in your feedback on how you felt it worked. So I work in healthcare. So this to me is like the wellness check, almost like a physical, you know. I want my doctor to look at everything when I go in for my physical. So that's kind of what this is. And it takes like every aspect of a club, and it kind of sets up a series of like little checkbox, you know, how's this doing? How's that doing? And I'm guessing, Sandy, that when you presented this to the board, it wasn't like they were checking all the boxes. It was more like contemplating, like you were saying.
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it sure is. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's got a series of boxes on club experience, and I'll go through this pretty quick. I apologize if there's scrolling. Hopefully you won't get a headache. Comments. So if the club is going to actually officially use it, there's a place to put in comments. And then just like with your physical, here's the prognosis, you know. As if there's a problem area for club meetings, there's different interventions, just like you would have with your physical. So each section has the same kind of format. Service and social activities. Again, a whole slew of different questions. One thing that I've seen some clubs do, which I'm not 100% on board with, is having this be the actual survey to the members. So they would send this out and have everyone fill it out. You can do that, or clubs can do that. I think the issue is that there's a lot of things to check here for each of these categories. What I've seen other clubs do is they'll take one section and send that out. So for example, I know one club sent the member section out just to get feedback on how they felt the club is doing in the membership area. So what's nice about these tools that Rotary has is it's not like you've got to use them exactly like they've been presented to you. You can use different pieces of it. You can do like what Sandy was saying is like, take a look at this, but we're not going to fill it out, but just think about it, you know? So different ways that these can be used. So
Jeff, I really like, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
No, to your point that you could break it out in sections to get a good gauge on the club health. And Martin's really good at doing stuff like this, of doing different things at the beginning of the meeting before a speaker. Fun way to do this would be focus on a specific area. For example, membership. You could put like a QR code on the screen, and you could take a phone poll. There's services and online tools that could help you do that. But just maybe in every club meeting, you take a poll and use this guide of different areas for your club.
Yeah. Yeah. Public image and business and operations. That's like one of the breakout sessions that we had today, kind of the internal infrastructure. And then it's got a what next, you know, at the bottom, like, well, after we check everything, what should we do? So kind of a call to action. So it's great. And our recommendation, like with all of these tools, is know about them. And if you're in leadership or you're going to be in leadership, think about whether they would be helpful. And like Sandy pointed out, you've got flexibility on kind of how you can use these tools. It's just nice to know that they're out there. So any questions about the health check? Okay. The other one is the strategic planning guide, which brings up this document. And this is really, again, another template that can be used for strategic planning. It's not the only one. The district has strategic planning tools that are available on the website to help. Again, the main thing is to know that they're there. And it goes through the whole kind of logic of strategic planning, understand kind of where the club is now, which is kind of like the health check, kind of develop a vision for the club, develop the plan with goals, and then how you're going to track progress. So again, very logical approach to planning. And, you know, as we pointed out earlier, a lot of clubs either don't plan or they don't think about it, and they just do things. And the things they do are wonderful, but they're not part of like a structured, what are we trying to accomplish as a club? What does progress look like? Things like that. So again, it goes through a different set of templates to fill in if you want to use this particular template. And ultimately it ends with a series of priorities like we have at the district. We've got priorities at the district level. The key is to execute the plan. So again, populating something like this is not that difficult. What's difficult is executing the plan and making sure you've got people identified or committees identified who are responsible for executing the different elements of the plan. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Tracking progress is really important. Like, how are we doing? Not everything that we plan is going to work, and we need to know that. And if things are not working, we need to make decisions. You know, what adjustments do we need to make? So the tracking progress may be the most important part, is you know, making sure we know how we're doing. And in that light, if you go to the Rotary website, rotary.org, you can go to Rotary Club Central, which is wonderful. So this is probably what Richard accessed when he said that there were like 30-something% of the clubs that had goals entered. This is where they would be entered. So because I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Albuquerque del Sol, when I go to Rotary Club Central, it's going to bring up my club goals. And As a member of the club, any member of the club should be able to see them. Certain members of the club can set them and change them, but anyone should be able to go in and see them. Our recommendation, and we've talked about this in the other breakout rooms, is that what a perfect opportunity for like a club assembly every quarter to have a discussion with the membership on how the club is doing, monitoring progress, and having a discussion with the members of what's working well and where we may need to make adjustments. So any thoughts or questions or?
Jeff, this is Martin. Real quick,
Martin?
Ames, our VP membership, she tried to get into this the other, just yesterday or day before, and she kept getting a do not have access. Is the net the one that we need to talk about why that's happening?
I would ask Danette. I think that would be a reasonable place to start. I don't know why someone would not have access. As I said, my understanding is any member of a club should be able to access this space.
I don't know, Jeff. I only think presidents can get, and certain people can get into these things.
Even to look at them?
Even to look at them, right?
Okay, all right. Well, if
But
that's
Donette would have the answer to that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I think that there are some restrictions.
So if that's the case, then it even makes more sense for the club leadership to use club assemblies, newsletters, bulletins, the website to show the goals, the plan, and how the club is doing. So it even makes that more important if that's the case.
Hey, Jeff, could you show them quickly about service activities?
Sure.
Because I found that so useful during COVID. And go over to the left where the tab is on the left side where it says service activities. Because this is where you find out all the things you're doing and how much money you're raising and how many volunteer hours you have and how many people you have working. And how do you fill that in? Your committee chairs who are in charge of those projects give you that information so the presidents can put that information in. And it's wonderful. And you share that with your club members, they're going to be blown away about how much they do. And it's all data driven. So, it's incredible. But the presidents have to put in the information, but they get that information from their directors who are responsible for providing you that information. It's great.
And that's one important part of Rotary Club Central is that a lot of the information, as Sandy was pointing out, has to be input in manually because Rotary doesn't know. So number of service projects, volunteer hours, youth programs, Interact, anything like that has to be manually entered. There's a few things that Rotary does know, however. So for example, foundation giving, Rotary is going to know. Membership, Rotary is going to know, so long as the club secretary is up to date with entering membership data. But a lot of it is going to be manually entered. But with any system that we use to track progress, data has to be presented and entered in so that you can track the progress. So just keep that in mind if your clubs are going to use this format. Okay. So we've looked at the health check. So we know how we can do like a club physical, warts and all. And by the way, this may be obvious, but when a club is going through an exercise of determining how it's doing, it has to do so with openness and honesty, not like everything is wonderful. We have to be open and honest and really understand where there may be some gaps and some problems. And sometimes that's hard to do, but it's important to, when you're doing that diagnostic, that it's be objective. And that if there are weaknesses in the club, that we acknowledge them and that we focus on how we're going to address them. I don't know if your clubs have that situation, but there are some people that look at everything through rose-colored glasses. We've got to be open and honest with this. And our district is going through the same exercise. You know, what's going well, where we need to improve, what's our health check, things like that. Enter the goals into Rotary Club Central. So if they're not documented, goals don't mean much. It really is important to document them and use this as a tracking tool. Okay. The other area we want to talk about was coaching new and continuing members in leading. And Yasser, I think, did a really good job of reinforcing in the larger session that we need to equip and prepare the incoming leaders. So preparing them for future roles, having that succession plan for leadership, but then training them like pets, which is wonderful. This leadership in action guide is very interesting. And this is one that kind of blew me away when I first looked at it. If you click on this link here, it brings up a one-page kind of high-level brochure on leadership and training leaders. So it's nice, but it in and of itself is not all that helpful. What is helpful is this other hyperlink here, leadership in action, which goes one level below. And what it brings up is a zip file of training content for leaders. And again, this blew me away. Had no idea this was out there. I believe that this was built around the time that the Learning Center was being developed in Rotary.org. And there's a lot of content in that too, obviously. But there's a whole set of files on different topics for leaders to get trained in. So if your club has a training program, this would be an interesting one to go through for leaders. This is the module for innovation. So it's like a full curriculum with learning objectives and all that. There's one on living our values. So I guess my view and the view of the district leadership team is that pets should not be the only training that incoming presidents get. There's content out in the Learning Center, there's this content. So ultimately, what we want to make sure is that when people agree to serve in a leadership role, that they get all of the training and preparation and equipment that they need to be successful. And there's a lot of it out there. So if you haven't seen this before, it's wonderful. And just like we were talking about with the health check, you know, there's all these different modules, and it may be decided that the incoming leadership needs maybe just 2 or 3 of these, ones that they may be weak in, or that they want to improve in. But what a great opportunity to help leaders be prepared to take on that role starting in July, or really before July. So, so that is also available, and that you get to through this leadership in action guide. So
Yeah.
bottom line is there's a whole slew of tools and templates and guides that Rotary has developed. And what's really nice about this Be a Vibrant Club brochure is it links to almost all of them. So any questions? And again, if your club has a training program, then some of this may be really applicable, so that pets is not the only training that the incoming presidents are getting. Or if the district puts on a training for incoming board members, which they did last year, that's great, but that may not be the only training that they want to get or can get. So any questions about the coaching new and continuing members in leading? We want them to be successful. The district will support them. The clubs will support them. So we just want to make sure that they don't go in, you know, blind, that they're prepared. Okay, well, if there's no questions on that, I'm going to stop sharing so we can see each other. Yes, Zone has many training opportunities too. There's a plethora. I think Eric put in the chat in the initial larger group about plethora. There is a plethora of training opportunities.
I really like these one pagers with the hyperlinks, because a lot of times we get information overboard, and this is a very simple way to get the information.
So what questions do you have? Feedback, thoughts? Governor, please.
So Jeff, I was just going to make one comment that we've noticed at our club is sometimes the strategic planning process is I'm going to use a verb that may not be correct, but sometimes it feels like it's quote, like maybe it's just the board that's looking at the strategic planning process. And so we're trying to explore ways to open up that strategic planning process just past what we have done in the past is have the incoming board and the sitting board meet together and try to work on the strategic plan for the club. But again, it seems like it's a very small nucleus of the club that does that. And I think for something to be successful, like a strategic plan, you have to have buy-in from your membership, right? Not just the leadership of your the general membership. So we are looking at maybe having a strategic planning party in the spring, something that's that's fun, because sometimes strategic planning can get a little dry, and so some way to try to engage, and it may not gel the whole strategic plan, but like you were talking about, it may give you that wellness check, or somebody could raise their hand and go, yeah, I don't think we should do that service project anymore. It's run its course, or and you go, oh my God, I had no idea, and we actually did that. We actually retired one of our service projects that had been going for 20 years, but it was time, right? So you don't, it's kind of like, and this, Jeff, probably better than I do. I remember going to a marketing seminar one year, and not Rotary, it was architecture stuff. Of course, architects are trained in planning, right? But the guy said, if everyone in your organization cannot recite the mission statement, it has failed, right? So don't create these verbose mission statements that nobody can remember. And he used one example of some firm that said, do really good architecture, make a lot of money, have a lot of fun, and he said everybody in that organization could repeat that, right? But I just think it's important to have a little bit of buy-in from the general membership on the strategic plans, because sometimes we tend to, that's a board activity and we don't need to bother them. And sometimes you're going to get some members that go, yeah, I don't care. Just tell me where I need to be, and
So that's, and Sandy kind of alluded to it too. Who owns the plan? If a club has a strategic plan, who owns it?
Yeah.
If the board owns it, that's a problem. Because if the club doesn't own it and the members don't own it, they're not going to be engaged with it. They're not going to be invested to the degree we would like them to be. So we need to find a way, and I like your idea about having a party or whatever you said. It's like everyone in the club needs to have a stake and an ownership and a piece. The board may take the lead on developing it, but everyone needs to have a stake, and that's part of the strategy of how the plan gets executed. Because if they're disengaged, if the members are not involved, and they say, well, they didn't ask me for my input, then they're likely not going to help execute the plan. Oh, great question in the chat. Sandy, what do you mean by zone?
See, isn't that great?
Mm-hmm.
because when I first started Rotary, I had no idea all the opportunities were available, which, you know, if you want to go up in your career in Rotary International, which we need to groom our folks to go up in Rotary International. What is zone? You know, to me, and I always explain it like it's, again, the military thing. You know, you have the Pentagon, which is Rotary International, and then you have major commands. Oh, Tom knows all this, groups, that and the other thing. And so, you know, you have zones that work with the districts, and then you have districts that work with the clubs. So it starts with clubs, districts, zone, we're 26, 27. But see, those are the kind of educational things that I think we also need to share with our incoming leaders, how everything works and how we can leverage all the information. I was blown away by all the education Rotary offers. It's just incredible. I know, I remember, and you district governors understand, Gary King said, you know, you don't need to go to school to be a state governor, but you sure do need to go to school to be a district governor in Rotary. So it's just pretty amazing. But that's what I mean by zone. We're in zone, I believe we're in zone 26, right? And we have 20, and we are grouped with 26 and 27. But that's throughout the country. Those are big areas, regions that are that then have, I think we have, Richard, how many we have? It's like 60. How many districts do we have in our zones? Or 26, 27, a lot, right?
There's typically 30 districts in each zone, and we're considered, even though they say 26, 27, we're considered the Big West. So there are 30 districts in our zone. They go from Hawaii to just a little bit east of El Paso.
Right. And isn't it true that anyone can sign up for Zone Institute?
Yeah.
And they happen
It's
every-
open. It used to be closed. I mean, you know, it used to not be open to the general membership, which again, there's that cloaking that I think we should try to avoid at all cost, right? You know, but now it's open to the general membership. But I don't think, Martine, if you polled most Rotary members, they know what zone is, right?
No, so I understood that the zone, when you said zone training, I mean, I've been to the district website and I've been to Rotary International website, but is it a subset of one of those websites?
The zone has its own website.
Oh,
I could type it in.
Yeah, that'd be great. And we're going to leave the breakout room in 50 seconds.
thanks, yes.
In fact, this Be a Vibrant Club workshop, when we started it 4 or 5 years ago, it came from the zone. Even though Rotary International may have developed it, it was the zone that promoted it to the districts and said, here's this really great tool now called Be a Vibrant Club. So we got a lot of support from our zone when we started this. So, okay, any other questions or thoughts? If not, we're going to get back to the main room. Thank you all very much. Hope this was helpful. And
Yeah, it was great. Thanks a lot.
We'll see you in the large room in 10 seconds.